After doing over $25 million in cash collected for our info product clients over the past 3 years, working with some of the bigger personal brands in this space, in this video, I'm gonna give you all the secrets. But before I do that, I need to kind of come clean because I kind of just clickbaited you guys. Because everyone has this misconception that the way to scale your info product business is through some secret. It's through some secret funnel or some secret ad strategy or something like that. And the truth is, across the dozens and dozens of info products that I've worked with that all do multiple 7 figures a year, it's not really about secrets. The truth is that the biggest info products in the space, they nail a set of principles. And then the secrets and the tactics are layered on top of that. And that's what helps them capture that last 20 or 30 or 40% of revenue. But the truth is that the secrets and the tactics don't mean anything if you don't get the underlying principles right first. So how about this? In this video, I'm not going to tell you about any secrets. Instead, I'm going to show you the 9 principles that all multi-million-dollar info products have mastered. And after I show you these principles, we can talk about secrets. If that sounds like a deal, let's get right into it. So yeah, guys, in this video, I'm going to share the 9 principles that every multi-million-dollar info product has mastered because, like I said in the intro, none of the little secrets and tactics matter until you master these 9 things. So let's get right into it. Principle number 1 is understanding offer positioning and having a unique mechanism. So over here, I've pulled 3 examples, 2 of which are clients of people who are in niches that most people would consider very saturated or competitive, but they've found ways to stand out and have really good success because they've found this ideal offer positioning. And they all have unique mechanisms as to how they achieve the results that they promise for their clients. So over here, we have John Mao. He's an advanced sales trainer, client of mine. So most people would consider the whole high ticket sales space to be very saturated. But we've done really well selling advanced sales training, at least on the organic side. So you can see here with the messaging, this is all completely tailored to existing sales reps. And obviously that's what we've had really good success with. So we doubled down on it, all the messaging within, the landing page, VSL, email flows, even all the pre-call process. It's all congruent to this offer positioning. Next example is essentially a fitness offer on steroids. This is a guy who I saw their ads. And essentially, this is a blood work protocol that's helped 2,000 plus high performing business owners shred fat, build muscle, and dominate their day. So essentially what this is, at least from me looking at it for a few minutes, is a fitness offer with obviously a blood work component tied into it, but it's positioned specifically for CEOs, business owners, and executives. So obviously the big difference between, the struggling online fitness trainer who's making like 10K a month and these guys who are obviously crushing is the positioning here. It's not only have they identified their ICP as CEOs, business owners, and executives, but they've also tied in blood work into it, which obviously is a huge value add for them. Because I'm assuming that's the big differentiator for why their clients decided to work with them as opposed to other fitness trainers on the market. Another example, Samir, who's a client of ours, he does e-commerce, and for the longest time he was selling like branded dropshipping, coaching, all this kind of stuff. And we've completely pivoted away from that for a couple of reasons. One, because Samir's actual brands use AI on a daily basis. So it's obviously a really hot trend, but it's also a very practical thing in the sense that like he's actually teaching his students how they're using AI to build these brands. But then also in terms of the offer positioning, we doubled down on the built to sell branding. Well, I'm going to talk about this more in a little bit, but essentially instead of these like pump and dump drop shipping stores, that's like the common enemy in a lot of our marketing is these people who pick one winning product, write it up to like 50K in rev, it crashes, and they do the same thing over and over again. What we teach people how to do inside of his program is building built to sell brands. So essentially the difference here is they're taking more of a long-term approach and they're building something that actually goes all in on one niche, like focuses a lot on customer LTV. And he basically just teaches you how to build a brand that could someday sell down the line. And obviously now with AI, he's teaching you how to use AI to kind of accelerate that whole process and make the brand run so much better. So principle number 2, and I would say it's kind of adjacent to the offer positioning that we just talked about, is the messaging. So like I said, adjacent to the first reason, but you can still have an offer that's positioned well, but is still being marketed to the wrong people. So for example, Samir's offer, the built to sell brand offer, On his organic audience, we position it towards beginners just because he posts kind of like the broad lifestyle content, so he gets a lot of beginners. But the whole point of this kind of offer positioning is that it's built on a bit of a higher pedestal than standard dropshipping. People look at standard dropshipping as kind of like a hustle, whereas like we're framing the built to sell brand mechanism as more of like a long-term play. Like this is something you could sell for 7 figures down the line, because his brands are obviously on a trajectory to sell for way more than that. And he has students in the program who do insane numbers who could actually sell their brands for 7 figures. So the point I'm trying to make here is, even though we position it towards beginners on organic, just because that's who most of his audience is, at least at the time that I'm recording this, we could position something like this as more of an investment and long-term play to a more affluent audience. So let's say, for example, I wanted to position it to, people who have disposable income and they want to build something long-term so that way they can put away a really nice nest egg. We could talk about things like, if you have capital set aside and you've looked into building some kind of brand in the past and you want something that could potentially sell for a lot of money someday, the good news is that AI is making it so much easier and it's accelerating these processes. In the past, a lot of people thought that to build your own supplement brand, or whatever the position we want to go for is, you had to dedicate 8 hours a day to it. You had to have all this expertise, but now AI has leveled the playing field so much, and now we're going to teach you how to build your own built to sell brand. And again, I'm kind of just going off the dome here, but that could be something that we position as a higher ticket offer with more bolt-on resources, done for you elements, etc. And I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent about this in a second. This is essentially what airbending is. So I work with a lot of the guys at the WAP team, and they have this term that they like to throw around for people who do what I do, essentially info product marketing, and they call it airbending. Because essentially what airbending is taking the program that you currently have, or taking the niche expertise that your creator has, and essentially repositioning it towards a more ideal ICP, typically, obviously financially, and then making the messaging congruent towards this person. So I'm going to show you some examples. So example number one is just basically what I was talking about with Samir. So Samir used to be the 100th person who was selling a drop shipping info product, and the whole drop shipping, space is honestly just a great example of this, because there's so many people who do not differentiate their offer, their messaging at all from each other, and it's just 100 people selling the exact same thing. But when we pivoted to this whole brand building thing, even though it's essentially the same information, just pivoted slightly, and obviously we adapted a bit of the course content, the service delivery, all that stuff, to this brand building angle, there's so many benefits that came into play when we did that. So the brand building angle essentially has all these intrinsic things that are now working in our favor. Like we talk about how these brands have legitimate enterprise value, how you don't have to constantly be testing all these new winning products and starting from zero on new stores. You build something long term that you can actually scale for years on end and get a check at the end of the process. Like we talk about how private equity firms are constantly looking to buy these e-commerce businesses, and you can be the person that's building them with AI. All these different things. My point being is that he has the drop shipping expertise, but we've now just repositioned it as a brand building product. Same thing, you see a bunch of people talking about AI agency, AI arbitrage, and these guys are crushing. But it's essentially just SMMA repackaged. This is how the info space works. You take the primary niche expertise that you have or you had, and you just reposition it based on current trends and what messaging best aligns with the ICP you're going for. And that's how you almost like resuscitate these niches that have been ran through for the past 5-10 years, like dropshipping and SMMA. So like the AI arbitrage is another great example of this. And then tying back to the example that I just gave up top, fitness coaching now turns into this blood work and DNA protocol, which essentially it is fitness coaching, at least from what I can tell, with added things on top of it, like the blood work protocol, all that stuff. But what they did is they took their primary expertise of fitness coaching and they added something on top of it that now is more attractive to their ICP of CEOs and business owners, and they've completely repositioned the offer. And that's probably one of the main reasons why they're crushing. Okay, so now I'm going to go on a little tangent. I might lose some of you guys at this, but I don't really care. This is my channel. I can talk about whatever I want. So going back to the whole airbending thing, I think that if you actually stick through this and see it through, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. But I don't know if you guys have ever watched Avatar. But I didn't really watch Avatar, but I understand the premise of it. So essentially, Avatar is an airbender, and he's able to bend air, water, fire, and earth, or whatever it is. And essentially that's how he's like doing whatever he's doing. I don't know if he casts spells or if he's a superhero, whatever he is, but essentially that's exactly what I just taught you how to do. You take the knowledge, which in the examples I gave you were like dropshipping expertise, fitness coaching, SMMA. You position the knowledge towards your ideal ICP. So like I showed you with that blood work offer, they positioned it towards CEOs and business people. You choose the messaging that aligns with it. So like you can see in the headlines and in the VSLs that they did in that example, it all aligns with this ICP. And then you just build the conversion mechanism and run lead flow through it. And that's essentially what airbending is. You go from this step of just having the niche expertise, and then you get it to the point where you've essentially turned it into a whole different offer, and you're actually running leads through it because now you've adapted the entire offer towards this new messaging and this new positioning. So basically, just to cut to the chase, like marketing is essentially just airbending if you know how to do it properly. And I want to give you guys another example. It's literally this video that I'm recording right now. So when I was coming up with the concept of this video, I realized that this is a great example of this principle. So I could take the exact same content in this video and essentially just airbend it to 3 completely different people. I could position it towards service providers just like me, and I could title the video something like my exact blueprint that I use to help all of my AI operating clients surpass X amount in revenue. I could position it towards aspiring info owners, and I could say, don't start your high ticket offer until you understand these 9 principles. Or I could position it towards existing info product owners and talk about exactly why your info product is stuck under X amount in revenue. It could be the exact same video, the exact same information, but I can reposition who it's intended for just by subtle changes in the messaging and packaging of the video. So look, I hope that made sense. I hope that wasn't too confusing. I just think it's this concept that we kind of came up with that I honestly think is helpful for you guys. Because at the time I'm filming this, Alex Hormozi just did like $100 million on a webinar, and he literally just positioned it as a book launch, which I feel like has such a better connotation to it. And that's like a prime example of this. He literally sold a coaching program. Obviously, he kind of did a Trojan horse with the books, but he ran a $100 million webinar and just positioned it as a book launch. So that just goes to show you that if you understand positioning and messaging and all this stuff I just talked about, you can quite literally just like bend reality to your will and bend the way that people perceive the things that you're offering. Okay, so the next principle that I want to get into is reverse engineering your goals. So I feel like I talk about this a lot, but essentially just the idea that all the biggest info products are numbers obsessed. And that's a really big transition that I've had to make over the past year or so, is just becoming obsessed with all the numbers across all of our funnels and all of our different clients. So here's an example of a financial model that we run for one of our clients on his call funnel. So in this financial model, we go into all the details when it goes into all of his paid ad statistics. So we look at the CPMs, link click-through rates, the page view to qualified book call percentage, cost per call, how many calls we're keeping, show rate, close rate, average cash per call, etc. And then we basically just have guidelines for if this metric becomes the bottleneck, here's exactly what to do, and we just follow that exact procedure. Same thing here for a webinar funnel. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that clarity is always in these numbers. So whether something's going really well or going really badly, the exact clues and root causes of exactly why that situation is happening is somewhere in these numbers. So the reason why I make such a big focus on reverse engineering our goals for our clients and just understanding our numbers better, because number one, it gives you so much clarity about your goals and understanding if they're even possible to hit. Number two is that it helps you identify exactly what's holding you back from your goals and the root cause of why that is happening. And then number three, it shows you exactly what to do and what to change to get over these road bumps. And when you understand the process fully, it just becomes a game of just monitoring all of your different KPIs, understanding what to do when each of these statistics gets out of KPI, fixing it, and it's literally just rinsing and repeating that process until you hit the goals that you've set. And it's one of those things that once you start doing this, you'll just never go back to the way you used to do things before, because now whenever I have a client who's like, hey, performance doesn't look so good on this funnel or whatever, the first thing I do is tell them, let's go look at the numbers. It's never any of this like, oh, I feel like it could be this thing, or maybe it's this random thing that happened. Literally, first response is always just to go look at the numbers, because the answer is literally just sitting right there. Okay, so the fourth principle that I want to get into is your pricing structure. So I want to give you two examples. Person number one has a 3K flagship offer. Person number two has a 5K flagship offer with a 10K upsell and a $997 downsell. So there's a lot of people who just run this first pricing model. They just have one offer. It's not even like super high ticket, and they're just expecting things to go their way and everything's going to work out swimmingly just having this one offer. But let's talk about the benefits of person number two's pricing structure and why they're more probable to be able to scale. So for number one, they actually have a downsell, which just means that they have more revenue that they can essentially get on like cleanup duty. So a big focus for us, especially when we're scaling to paid ads, is how can we liquidate ad spend? And with some of our bigger clients, we're able to liquidate 20 or 30 or even 40% of our ad spend just from downsells. So that's not even including all of the sales that we make on the high ticket flagship product, which obviously makes everything so much easier because we can tolerate higher cost per acquisitions. We can tolerate rising ad costs during different holidays or during Q4 and all that stuff because we've essentially built in like a safeguard of, okay, we're going to recoup 30 or 40% of our ad spend just from different strategies that we're running to get downsells in the door. Second thing is, for person number two, if they're leveraging financing properly, this alone can boost the rev drastically. So there could be people who come through their funnel who, if they came through person number one's funnel, they would just close on the 3K offer views. It's the only thing they have. But if person number two has financing in play, they can potentially get that person on a 10K offer just because they have financing, or they get them on the 5K and then obviously finance them into the 10K later. The third benefit of person number two's pricing structure is that person number two has an actual ascension process that leads into an upsell. So I know plenty of guys and plenty of sales agencies that we work with who focus on this really heavily, but it's essentially the entire ascension process from getting people in from even your $9.97 or even like a $47 product all the way up into like a 10K product, and they crush with that. And just having these different pricing options and this offer ladder in place unlocks so much potential revenue for your team. And the fourth benefit of person number two's pricing structure is they have a way higher margin for paid traffic. So literally just 3K versus 5K, not even including the downsell or the upsell, is a 66% raise in price, which means that person number one and person number two can have the exact same front end metrics. They can have the same cost per call, same show rate, same close rate, etc. And person number two's margins are going to be so much better just because their offer is $2,000 more expensive. I know this is something that sounds super simple on paper, but you'd be shocked at how many people never actually look into raising their prices or looking around at other competitors in their niche, seeing what resources that they're offering alongside the offers to get their LTV up. And stuff like this makes such a big difference at scale, especially with paid traffic. So principle number 5 that I want to get into is the importance of your sales team. So the truth is, no matter how good your offer is or the marketing or the traffic sources, etc., the sales team can and often is the Achilles heel. I'm not trying to be too critical, but I'm just saying, like, you can do everything perfect, but if your sales team is not doing what they need to do, the results are just not going to be good. The biggest thing that I've noticed as someone who is not a salesperson, I'm not trying to say that I'm an expert in sales, I'm not trying to say that I'm a sales manager, these are just 3 key things that I've noticed, is that the culture and competitiveness on the team is so key. The best sales teams that I work with, they literally almost act like sports teams. Like, they're so competitive, there's such a good culture, everyone's excited for each other, there's constant communication, like all these different things. It's literally night and day when you see a sales team where like the group chat is completely dead, no one really seems to know what's going on a day-to-day basis. And then you see some of the sales teams that I work with where like they're firing off 100 messages a day in Slack. It's honestly kind of excessive, but they're all like so hyped all day. It just creates such a better culture, which just makes performance so much better. Second thing when it comes to sales team is having a well-defined process and having proper management to stay accountable for it. So what I mean by this is just having like a proper sales manager and having a blueprint that sales manager is actually following, and essentially having marketing and sales on the same page about everything that's going on. So like, for example, if you launch a call funnel, your sales manager should be looking at the data and the feedback of these calls directly with you. You and the sales manager should be in constant communication about, okay, I'm noticing this with the leads, this cost is a bit too high. I'm noticing that these prospects don't understand this, all these different things, but just having a really good process in general that the sales manager is following, and then actually having a sales manager who's keeping the sales reps accountable. And then the third and final thing, this is just kind of a broad overarching thing, is just having high standards, and this is team wide. So like if the sales manager and if the best reps are constantly just holding each other accountable, they're all on top of their game, they're all not making these little mistakes and just slipping up, I think it spills over to everyone on the entire team, even outside of sales. So those are my 3 insights as someone who is not a sales manager, but works obviously with sales managers and salespeople every day. The 6th principle that I want to talk about is maximizing LTV. So this kind of goes back to the other principle where I was talking about the pricing structure, but especially with paid traffic, maximizing your LTV is such a big difference maker. So even just boosting your LTV from $3,000 to like $4,200 by charging a continuation, which again is a 40% increase, gives you a higher margin, gives you a higher tolerance for rising CPAs, like I said in the other example, and all that kind of stuff. So the way that you actually do this and maximize LTV, and again, this isn't something I'm like an expert in, but just from what I've seen from some of our clients, is having an actual offer ladder, like I said in the other step, where you have a downsell, a flagship, an upsell, and then even like other things behind that. Charging a continuation. So I think that every single high ticket offer should charge for like a 3 or 4 month period and then have a continuation after that. Just for one, it keeps the quality of members in the group high and everyone's engaged because they're actively still paying for it. And then also it makes it so much easier on the fulfillment side. Like when you give people lifetime access for things, it's just bad on both parties' side because the customers feel like they have this entitlement where, you know, they paid for something a year and a half ago, but they think they're still able to ask questions and receive all the attention. And also, even on the customer side, because they paid for something that has lifetime access, they all of a sudden don't have any urgency to actually act on the information. Whereas like you give them a 3 or 4 month time window, it's like they're getting to work as soon as they get into the program. So I think it's better on both sides to have 1, a set time period for the offer, and then 2, actually charging continuation. And now the third thing is having adjacent services and softwares within your product. So we have a client in the Amazon space who obviously they do well on their front end program, but within the program, they have a bunch of different services that they're upselling people into, cross sells. They have all these different softwares and all this stuff, and that adds so much LTV onto their customers. So they can literally afford to, in theory, break even on the front end with their info sales just because of how much money they make off of people on the back end. There's a lot of different offers that I've seen that are able to do this effectively, and genuinely it just makes info such a better business when you're getting your customers to pay you several times and you have some hand in many other things that they're paying for. Given like a lot of these people are starting businesses that they're going to spend, you know, $5, $10, $20, $30,000 a month on. And it's like, why would you not set up affiliate partnerships for people who have the same customer as you? Or why would you not build your own softwares? Or why would you not build your own services that you have your students use and you give them a discounted rate? Like things like that just make it so much better and make the idea of scaling through paid traffic, 1, a lot easier, and 2, a lot more lucrative when you have all of these different things that you're selling your students once they buy your program. Okay, so the 7th principle is don't rely on one conversion mechanism. So when you only rely on one conversion mechanism, especially with paid traffic, there's going to be some days where you have a roller coaster. Like we have some clients where we're spending a lot of money every single day on their call funnel, and we'll just have random days where the lead quality just sucks, the cost per call just sucks. And, you know, that just happens. Like Facebook ads are just volatile. So when you're living and dying by only one conversion mechanism, you're kind of just riding this roller coaster. Whereas like when you have multiple conversion mechanisms, call it 2 or 3, it's like having a plane with multiple engines. So not only are you diversifying your risk across these different conversion mechanisms, also having multiple running in tandem usually means better overall performance. So that way, if one's failing, you're still alive, kind of like a kidney. So I'll give you a little bit of a more practical example. So the combo that a lot of our biggest clients are running primarily is call funnels and webinars in tandem. So the call funnel attracts people who buy, obviously, but there's still plenty of people who are on the fence, who just don't book a call, they don't show up to the call, they don't close on the call, whatever. And then, like, let's say we're running a webinar. Obviously, the webinar attracts people who buy, obviously, but some people don't want to act then and there, and they need more time, and they don't want to be put on the spot and book the call then and there. You know, they want to do it, they want to take some time to think on it and do it later. But because you're running both, the call funnel ads naturally retarget people who went to the webinar and they convert through that call funnel. And then the people on the fence from the call funnel show up to a webinar and convert. So adding in new funnels, like whether it's low ticket to high ticket challenges, etc., multiplies this effect when done properly and diversifies your risk further. And the nuance here is obviously you should only be focusing on one conversion mechanism at a time, but the goal is to have multiple profitable funnels running simultaneously depending on your goals. Obviously, you know, you can still scale a call funnel to really big numbers, but this is just my preference because I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket. I just want to get the call funnel to the point where it's like an 8 or 9 out of 10, like we're really happy with the performance. Then I want to go perfect the webinar. And then after we perfect the webinar, I want to go move on to the next funnel, diversify our risk across different funnels because I understand that there's spillover between the funnels, which usually means one, like I said, we're diversifying the risk, and two, the overall performance across all of the funnels is better. So the 8th principle that I want to get into is the importance of retention marketing. So I've gone on calls with so many people throughout the years who just like don't do email marketing, don't do SMS, like all this stuff. They just think it's completely optional. But think about the average sales cycle for a high ticket info product, especially now with how many options there are in most markets and how skeptical a lot of buyers are. It can easily be weeks, months, if not years. So the big question that I would say is if you understand that the sales cycle might be longer than you think, how can you stay top of mind? So there's obviously email campaigns, contextual flows, SMS, pushing new offers and events to the list, etc. I wouldn't say that email is like the biggest lever in the world, but what I would say is that even if 10 or 15% of your revenue comes from email and SMS, which I think is more than realistic, that's money going straight to your bottom line compared to if you don't do it, because all you're paying is maybe a copywriter and the software cost for the email sending platform, which really isn't much. But I want to give you an example here. So I was just poking around in Highroads because I wanted to find an example of it. This is someone who came through one of our funnels on May 12th of this year. And ever since May 12th, they've been clicking on all kinds of stuff. They've been poking around on all these different ads, and they've been opting into different things, all this stuff. This is all the same customer. And then they finally closed on July 26th. So that's 2.5 months later, and that's even after all of the things that we do to condense the sales cycle. Like this client runs webinars almost on a weekly basis. We do email marketing all the time. We do SMS list pushes all the time, like all these different things. And even after condensing the sales cycle that far, it still took 2.5 months for this guy to make a purchasing decision. So what I would say is that if he wasn't doing email marketing, we weren't doing SMS, we weren't pushing all these different offers and events to the list, that person might have went and bought from a competitor. So what I would say is that retention marketing isn't the number one priority for your offer, but it definitely should be a priority. And now the 9th and final principle that I want to get into is that scaling to cold traffic isn't optional, it's inevitable. So I'm sure a lot of people watching this video, either your clients are all organic or your offer is all organic, and maybe you have this hesitancy about getting into paid ads because it's scary and you've never done it before. But the truth is that basically nobody maintains their peak organic numbers for more than 2 to 3 years. Most people, it's honestly way less than that. Everyone eventually has to lean into paid. It's just, do you want to do it when stuff is going well, like when your organic audience is cruising, you're doing consistent months from organic to just amplify those results? Or do you want to wait until shit hits the fan and the well has completely dried up and you're doing paid ads now out of necessity? So it makes absolutely zero sense for anyone who's crushing with organic to be running no paid media. Even if you're just doing, low spend retargeting ads, or you're running things like the Hammer Them to just help with your sales stats and just overall your call funnel. It makes no sense if you're doing well on organic to be spending $0 a month on paid ads, and vice versa. If you're doing paid ads, it makes no sense for you to not be posting organically because, like I said in principles number 7 and 8, the importance of retention and just doing things with longer sales cycles in mind. But then also in number 7, where I talk about only relying on one conversion mechanism, you don't want to just rely on people who come through ads and buy from ads. You want to be nurturing them constantly with organic. But the smartest, and in my opinion, only way to build an info product is with the intention of scaling it to cold traffic. So that has a lot to do with principles number 1 and 2 in this video, which is more around the positioning and the messaging of the offer and building that for cold traffic from day one. But ultimately, this is how you buy back stability and control and boost the lifespan of your offer. I have clients right now who used to be 80 or 90% organic who are now 80 or 90% paid. And I'll genuinely tell you, although there's different challenges that come with organic versus paid, and obviously organic's more profitable, it's such a good feeling to have some kind of control over the business. Whereas if you're only organic, the only thing you can do is just post more videos and hope that they go viral Where it's when you crack have paid traffic and you have a consistent way of putting $1 in and getting $4 or $5 out, it adds so much stability and longevity to the business. So the overall principle here is just to think with the end in mind. If you know that someday you're going to have to transition to cold traffic, why not build the offer from day one with the intention and the positioning and the messaging to one day scale to cold traffic? So guys, I hope this video was valuable. If you thought that this was valuable and you want to learn directly from me, you can click the link down below and fill out that application. Or if you want me to help you scale your info product, you can fill out the exact same application. But either way, share this video with someone that you think it'll benefit. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.